Welcome to this DDi CADcast What's New series. Today we're covering what's new in SolidWorks Electrical Schematics. This is part 1. Here's a quick look at the new 2015 SolidWorks Electrical, or at least this is the start of the list of part 1. And SolidWorks Electrical, they actually are calling it Schematics now rather than SolidWorks Electrical 2D. That way it kind of makes more sense as far as the naming goes, but we're going to dive in here and take a look at this first batch of items that are new for 2015. Lots of good stuff this release. Alright, so one of the first items we're going to take a look at here in Electrical 2015 is the ability of importing and exporting metadata basically through an Excel file. So over here on the Import Export tab, we have Export to Excel and Import to Excel. Or from Excel, I guess I should say. When we jump into the export, we have the ability of picking out the different reports. So we can actually grab any of the predefined ones. And I'll go and go next. It notices that it's already been exported once before, so I'll go and do delete existing reports or exports. And same thing again. Pick out a directory. And I'll go and overwrite, and you'll see that I've got two new Excel files there, or updated Excel files. I'll go and open one of them here so you can see what they look like. So the first one is the book tab. Notice there's a couple of hidden rows there. I haven't done much experimenting with this, so I'd have to see what items you can import and what items you can't import. So I don't know if we can add a whole nother row, or if we just want to stick to just adding the descriptions and translatable data there. So the list is actually quite long, so if you use the tabs to scroll through all the different tabs there, or the buttons to scroll through all the tabs, you'll see that there's lots of stuff that we can add into an Excel format. So I'll go and close out of it. Import's real similar. I'll go and pick out what I'm going to import. I'll do all objects. You'll see that there's nothing new or nothing that's changed, so it's just going to say that there's nothing to do there. Alright, so we're going to cancel out of that. The other aspect of this is you can customize from the Projects tab what the exports are. So we're going to go in here, and we have application or system level templates to start with. And at any point I can grab one of these templates, add it to project. And then once it's added to project, I can go into properties of that particular one and fully define what's being brought in there. So it's going to grab in common elements, grab which bits of data that I want or don't want, depending if it's checked or unchecked, and then I can create a completely custom export template. Alright, so I'll go and finish that. Opens it up. Go and close those out. And from here, if I find that I'm going to use this on more than one project, I can always add to application. So great new addition for those that need to add lots of data real quickly in 2015. Next item here in 2015 is when we go to the File tab and we go to Archive Our Environment. They've given us a little bit more control on our export, so we can actually say object modified by user since a specific date. We could say all objects, or objects modified by user. So we can also set a reminder to actually do a backup every 30 days too. So it's a great new addition for the ability of making sure that you get your environment set up. If we go custom, you do still have the ability of going through all of them and deciding, okay, I don't want that one backed up, I do want that one backed up. But the selection tab is the new item for 2015. Imports exactly the same as far as the environment goes. As far as the process goes, if I save that, hit finish, it'll ask me for the directory. So I'll go and overwrite this other one that I saved earlier, and it's going to go through and export that entire environment. It's a great way to get a backup of all your projects and all the data and symbols and everything else. Okay. Gives you a report at the end, and we'll go and hit finish. Don't need to open the folder, and we're good. Alright, so this next one is the manager interface, and it's essentially it applies to a bunch of different managers in the library. So the civils manager, the 2D footprint manager, title block manager, cables manager, and also the macros manager. Basically, they're all the same, so I'm just going to go into the symbols manager one here. Typically, it opens up to the classifications tab. But if we go over to the filters tab, this is where they've made the improvement. So all the property fields are used to filter the management content. So we can actually go through and do modification dates. We can do characteristics and different options. So we can actually better organize or better collect the different data. I also have my in-class option, which is kind of handy there. So I'll jump over to circuit breakers, and you'll see that it's a lot user-friendly interface for using the filters within each of the managers, and they're slightly different depending on which one you go into. Alright, so this next one is improvements to the formula manager, and this actually shows up in lots of different places. So we're talking components marks, wire numbers, and a few other locations. So I'm going to start out by going to the project tab, configurations, and project, and I'll go and jump over to the marks tab there. So you've got, again, slightly different interface than what we saw last year for the marks. I'm just going to go to the bookmark here, hit the formula manager button. So this is the formula manager for bookmarks. So we have the predefined ones, they've got recent ones that you might have done, and then also variables in similar formats. So they've also brought in more stuff than what was previously available in a lot of these. When I go back to the marks tab, marks unique by, and we can do by project, location, function, location and function, or by the book. So you have lots of control over what the marks are going to look like. So I'm going to leave it as per project, and then down below we'll go and do a customize mark, and then once again we can go back into our function manager. So we'll go into components. You'll see the predefined ones, recent formulas. I don't have any because I haven't added any, but then we do have some more options here as far as items that I can bring in. I'm not sure why they put the scroll bar on the right there, but I guess they're anticipating that list getting a lot longer. So definitely a new change. I think it's a little bit easier, a little more intuitive as far as getting around goes. So, and you'll see that show up in lots of different places for the formula manager there. Alright, so I think this next one will probably make a lot of you happy as far as a great addition to 2015 SolidWorks Electrical. On the schematic tab, so I created myself a new drawing here, there's a insert connectors button, and this is brand new for 15, so I'll go and click on that, and it'll give me the option to create a new connector, selecting existing or do nothing. So I'm going to say create new connector, and from here it pops up with the manufacturer's list. A great way of starting right with the right number of pins. So I'm going to actually find the manufacturer of a particular connector. So I'm going to go with one of these amp connectors, and you can see that there's 12 pins on it, or terminals. So I'm going to add that, and I'll say select, and it automatically assigns the number just like what we're used to, and we could manually overwrite that if we needed to. So I'm going to maybe change that to a C or something, and I'll go and hit OK. And then now we get this new dialog on the left there. First time you're using it, it might go to the select symbol, and you might end up popping up with the symbols library. So you could still pick out a specific connector symbol, but notice that they have actually added a whole bunch of new connectors now in 2015. But we're not going to do that. We're actually going to use one of the other options. So there's several ones here. One's without pins, one's with pin symbols, and then one symbol per pin. So we're going to do with pin to start with. And down below, I just go through and say I don't want certain terminals. So I'm just going to go and uncheck 9 through 12 there. And standard orientation. and bring my cursor into the graphics area, and it drops it in with 8 connectors there. And then it leaves me in the command that I can actually go through and drop in the remaining of that overall connector. So maybe you have a split, or maybe you have an A and a B side, or 2 different sides of it that you're wanting to illustrate. So I'm going to drop that one in, and now I've got both my connectors in. So that's one way of using it. Another way of using the insert connector, I'll go and say create new, and I'll pick out another, and I'll do that 12.1 again. Ideally, I'd probably have a male and a female version of that if that's what that connector was designed for, but picks out the next available number. I'll go and do C, and notice it goes to 2 there. This time I'm going to do 1 symbol per pin. Okay, and once again I'll just do 1 through 8, so I'll uncheck the remaining here. And notice that my orientation's wrong, so I'm going to do a right click and get it to rotate to a different orientation. I want to come directly off of that other one. And notice it drops it in 1 symbol per item. If I need to change it, so I'm going to stop here with that one. And say this particular one, I didn't want that connector for that location. Maybe it was a female pin or a male pin or something. So I'm going to right click over that one specific symbol and say replace, only selected. And then I get back into the symbols library. I could pick out the one I'm looking for. Maybe I'm doing the female pin there. Again, orientation might need to be fixed, so I'll right click and I'll do a rotate to 90. And it also gives me an extra symbol because that's one of the attributes part of that, so I'll just right click over it, symbol properties, and say I don't need the symbol mark for that particular one. So now I've got a majority of my pins one way, and then I've got the one that I need to replace swapped out. So from here, I'll go and add some lines in. So let's just do single line, spacing 5 because I'm in millimeters on this particular one. And then once again I'll just draw across, right click again, and then I've got my wires in there. I think I've got my wires set to a really thick size right now, so I'll need to change that. If this was just connecting 2 connectors together, I could right click and say create bridge, and hit OK. So essentially that would be as if these 2 connectors were plugged into each other. So the bridge is allowing me to symbolize that. Alright, so this next one's called permanent state of a component, and I think this was probably directly out of a user request. I think of people that I've talked to, they were kind of looking for this. Typically, like if I go to insert a symbol, I'm just going to use this meter symbol here. I drop it in, go to the manufacturers tab, search for a part or a manufacturer, so that one meets it, that's fine. Not real too worried about that type of thing. I am also going to switch it to a different location. I set up an empty location here, L4, and I'll go and hit OK. So as soon as I drop in a symbol and associate it to a location, that part shows up, or that component shows up in the tree, and then I get the indicator that there's a symbol associated to that. But in the past, though, after setting up all the manufacturer stuff, if I didn't want that symbol and I deleted it, it actually deleted out of the location. The only way to get around that was to right click over the location, say new component, and add it in that way. So I'm going to do an undo here and get that symbol back. What I can do though at any point is I can right click over one of the components and say set as permanent component. And as soon as I do that, I can delete my symbol to my heart's content, and it still leaves the component in the tree there. So now when I go and insert, I might pick out a different symbol this time, so I'll maybe pick out this amp meter or something, drop that in, and I'm just going to associate it to that one that's already in the tree. So it's a great way of stopping it from moving. And hit OK. So now that's associated to that P1 component there. So good addition. I think it was probably directly out of a user request stuff. Alright, so this last one for part 1 of the What's New SolidWorks Electrical 2015. This one is called Cross-Reference Configurations. And essentially it's given us the ability of managing different styles of our cross references that show up on drawing. So for example, KM1, this particular coil, it's connected to a relay, and then that relay is basically, or the contact relay, it's telling us by colors based off of whether it's connected or not connected, or it still needs wired and that type of stuff. So those are still the same. It's just the ability of controlling several different style sets. So I'm going to go over to the Project tab here, go down to Configuration, and I go Cross References. And this whole new configuration manager allows us to use default ones. We can actually take those and add to the project, and within the project I can actually go and open one of those up. And this was the interface that it used to take us directly to, was the fact that, okay, what color means what, what's showing up in the table, what's in the parent inline there, and what symbols, depending on which one you're connecting to, it was pulling from. So the manager basically allows us to manage several different versions of these, rather than us just having one per project. So it allows us a lot more flexibility. So that's it for this particular hands-on of what's new with 2015. I do want to point out where I'm getting my information from. I go to the Help menu, question mark there, and it actually will take us into the Help, and I'm looking at the new features here. So I'm actually covering this, the first few in the first part, and then go and come back and see part 2 and part 3 for the additional ones that are part of what's new for 2015. Once again, here's a quick list of the items that we covered in part 1 of the SolidWorks Electrical Schematics for 2015. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/DDi CAD, and definitely check out our blog at DDi CAD.com/Tech Center. Thanks, and have a great day.